We are here at Engelhart Farm in our permanent tomato patch. We rotate crops almost everywhere, but tomatoes grow in the same spot over and over. If you ever notice that your tomatoes will reseed themselves in the same spot and they're almost like an invasive species, you can't get rid of them. I want to show you a little how we prune our tomatoes here. This is a prolific cherry tomato called Sweet 100. I think it's because there's like 100 tomatoes to pick every time you harvest. We haven't started harvesting over here yet. We're still harvesting the early tomatoes in the greenhouse. They're really delicious. You can prune tomatoes or you cannot prune tomatoes. If you're just growing tomatoes in your garden, they're likely going to be prolific no matter what. This pruning that we're doing is for the most amount of tomatoes and to fill the space that we have and to make it easy for harvesting. This is the main stalk or the central leader system, and then this is where you're seeing that you'll get tomato, leaf, leaf, tomato, flower. But in the L here in the corner, this is where it shoots the new part of the plant. And we want to stop that and just keep the energy contained here unless you want to specifically develop one of them. In the middle, between the leaf and the main stem, is the one that is the sucker, and that's what you want to take off. This is one central leader. You can see it's coming up here, but unfortunately we let this sucker go. It already made some flowers. If we don't cut it, then what happens is we're taking away from this big main one. We're gonna actually let this one turn into a third central leader because this one down here didn't take off. So we're gonna wrap that one around, but then this one already has suckers coming off of it. How you know if it's a sucker? Here's the leaf that's supporting the central leader. Now here's the sucker. This will get just as big as the rest of the plant. It already has flowers on it. Don't get emotional about that. There's gonna be plenty of flowers and plenty of tomatoes on these plants. In between each set of leaves, they're gonna throw a flower. You're gonna have consistent tomatoes all the way up. You cut this sucker out, and then this leaf supports this. Here's the flower, here's the next leaf, and there's the next flower in between. Now here is a little sucker that's just a baby. You cut it there. But if you cut it when it's that small, it's likely gonna still go. So you wanna wait. And this is the central leader one, and then you're just gonna wrap it around. Here's the next set of leaves, and in between there's flowers turning into tomatoes. Cut the sucker off there. And honestly, I don't wanna cut it off once it has flowers. I'm like, that's gonna be tomatoes. My husband's like, he'll just take everything off of a tomato plant. And he's right, and I'm wrong, but I get emotional. Here's a sucker, get rid of it. Here's a sucker already making flowers. I know it's emotional, but just gotta bite the bullet and do it. And then we wrap it around kind of the opposite of the natural way that the tomato wants to go so that the string holds it up. Here's another sucker, get rid of it. And then here's the next leaf, leaf, flower, leaf, leaf, flower. That's how it's gonna go. This is a tomato that's not taking off as good as other ones, and you can look around if it's a weed problem, if it's a food problem. It's likely a water distribution problem. It seems like it's still gonna make it, but you see here there's two, so really we just need one central leader. So we're gonna just get rid of this whole plant. We're gonna pull it up here and wrap it around, and then we're gonna get rid of everything else. We got a sucker here, but there's gonna be plenty, and you're gonna have a better yield. If this one gets big and strong, we can scooch this one over and use a second branch, one of the big suckers, and make it go up. Ideally, all the plants would take off and you just keep them as each a single central plant. But in this case, we had some early cold, hot, and not all these tomatoes took off. So now we're moving to this one. This is the sucker, I guess, here. Let's get rid of that. Bring this up, wrap it around. If the plant's growing up, imagine a Christmas tree. Christmas tree is like a very good example of a central leader system where the one is shooting up the middle. The central is just like the main original shoot, and then if you want to have two, like this one has two, you just choose the strongest other one that's coming out and make that the second one. We have to wrap it up into the string because the weight of the fruit will drag it onto the ground, and then the parts of the fruit that's touching the ground will get bitten up and get potato bugs or roly-polies will eat them and they won't be sellable to the market. I don't cut the leaves off of the tomatoes except for when they start to get unhealthy around the bottom of the plant. Ultimately, unhealthy leaves are a place for disease to hang out. See, like this is trying to take over and be the main guy, but we gotta say, dude, let me live. I don't prune the leaves unless they're unhealthy, but my husband will just take everything below where the fruit is starting to ripen. He cuts it all off. He'll just like clear it all out so that the sun can get to the tomatoes. I don't do that. I'm a little gentler in my style of pruning. This one again, my husband has already started to make it into 2 because this one next to it didn't live. Now the plant can focus its energy in a better way. Tomatoes that are grown in the greenhouse always look better than tomatoes that are grown outdoors because there's less factors. You're not gonna get sunburned on one side. I mean, I think greenhouse tomatoes are delicious, but an outdoor sun-ripened summer tomato, like, nothing compares. The heirloom tomatoes we do in the greenhouse mostly because they can easily get messed up by stuff, but our indoor tomatoes we start harvesting far earlier because we can plant them basically year-round. We have tomatoes in the greenhouse. And we get to grow outdoors basically from now till December. We'll be harvesting till whenever we get a hard frost. We'll be harvesting outdoors. Pollination of tomato plants happens from bees, mostly honeybees, but I see some butterflies in here. I saw a bumblebee here earlier doing his thing. If you want high amounts of pollination, you gotta have pollinators, just like anything in the world. I mean, 80% of our food needs bees to pollinate. Mushrooms do not, corn does not. There's a few other things. I love tomatoes. I think tomatoes are like one of those quintessential crop every farmer imagines. If you have a farm in the summertime, if you're not growing tomatoes, like something's wrong for sure, because I think tomatoes are a huge part of what we expect from a farm in the summertime. I love using tomatoes in almost everything, honestly. Tomatoes, like when they're in season, there's nothing better. And when they're out of season, there's nothing more disgusting. My best friend and me used to eat something was like heirloom tomato on skinny toast all summer, just salt and pepper and heirloom tomato on what we called skinny toast, which is like that very thin, very dark rye toast. We would eat that all summer. In the wintertime, I'll just pass on a tomato on anything. There's nothing worse than a out of season tomato. It's not even worth eating. And when people tell me like, oh, I don't like tomatoes, I'm like, you've never had a good tomato, because nobody in their right mind doesn't like tomatoes. They just don't like mealy, mushy tomatoes picked green, used gas, forced to turn. Ugh. I like tomatoes on anything and everything in the summertime. And I'm a big believer in the blender. People say, oh, it's too much to make tomato sauce, to take the skins off and all that stuff. You can make salsas, you can make anything just really fast. Use the blender, blend up tomatoes, ugly tomatoes, imperfect tomatoes. Just blend them up and make whatever you want. I blend up tomatoes and do a simmer sauce with some garlic, anything. Just start anything by putting some tomatoes in the blender. Cherry tomatoes, when they're not good, are disgusting. These ones, I can't stop eating them. We believe that the more you prune your tomatoes, hard to believe that we believe this looking at my tomato patch right now, but we believe that the more you prune, the more harvest you end up getting, and the quality of the harvest is better, the size of the harvest is better, and the plant is putting all of its root energy into where it belongs. We believe that that is really important. I hope you found this helpful, seeing how we prune tomatoes here at Engelhart Farm. I hope that you click the like button, subscribe, tap that bell so you get notifications. We put out videos every single Friday, but in case you forget, that bell will remind you.